Absolutely massive results in round 26. Two of the top four teams lost. The Bulldogs, well, they're no longer indestructible. And Sean Johnson got his fairy tale finish. Wow. I can't wait to see what happens in round 27. What's going on, guys? Bergs here from The Casual Athlete, and what a round we have just witnessed. So many results going against the grain. If you got 8 out of 8 last week, you're an absolute genius, gentleman, and a scholar. But before we get into last week's tips, guys, just a reminder to like and subscribe to the channel. We bring out so much content each and every week, whether it be fantasy, tipping, or some general NRL content. Please make sure that you like and subscribe to the channel. It helps us out a ton. And now let's just take a quick look back at how the demolition job was on my tips last week, guys. Not going to lie, it wasn't a good one. 4 out of 8 tips correct, and probably should have gone a few more upsets. That is the way the season has been trending of late. The Cowboys, though, getting a win on Thursday night, did it the hard way. I got to tell you, it was not looking good against the Storm's reserve grade side. They had some really good input from Wishart in that game. He looked unstoppable, and the Cowboys, well, they got away with it by the skin of their teeth, in my opinion, and they really do not look in great form heading into the finals, and they will be there, which is the unfortunate part for me as a Cowboys fan, but not holding out much hope. But you've got to be in it to win it, and the Cowboys will be there. For the Dogs, first loss at home, as I spoke about in the intro, and they really looked outgunned against Manly. All of the Manly front row forwards did a phenomenal job. Paseka, Lodge, Aloye were phenomenal in this game. They all had 100 metres plus and really battered that small Bulldogs forward pack that we have been talking about. And it is an interesting loss. I do think that they needed to lose one heading into the finals just to give themselves a little bit of a, we're not indestructible. Now let's, galvanise together and they can really make a run of it. I actually like them more now that they've had that loss. They weren't looking good for me coming in the back of maybe a 7-game winning streak. To me, that doesn't really bode well in final series. For the Panthers, getting a win out at Penrith, yep, that was job done as expected. Yo was outstanding in that game. I thought Luai also stood up in this game. Definitely a good comeback for him considering his performance against the Raiders a week prior, but good on the Panthers for probably securing second spot considering the losses of 2 other teams on this list. And St. George, wow, what was that out at CommBank Stadium? It was one of their winning weeks, and they have suffered a back-to-back loss for the first time since round 14, but man, to lose it like that to an Eels team that really has nothing to play for, I think they may have taken it a little bit easy going down to CommBank thinking, we'll just dust up the Eels here, and really didn't go their way until the final 10 minutes. Good on the Eels for getting a victory. That's always good to see. But St. George, man, they really have fumbled it on this one. Dolphins. Now, we picked Dolphins as our lock of the week last week, and I said in that video that they have had the minerals this year to be able to go with a team for 80 minutes, and geez, they looked exceptional the other night, taking on a Brisbane side that is missing a few stars. Let's not get anything wrong, but they have not been playing anywhere near their best football, let's be completely honest. And for Kevy to say that they were going to be in the finals, it really is a very memeable moment now, isn't it? The Sharks came up against a lot of emotional adversity in this game against the Warriors. They had it in the palm of their hands as well. We're up 22-4 in that one. Had 2 disallowed tries to start the second half, which really would have pushed the score out to an insurmountable figure for the Warriors, but they just kept scrapping, they kept fighting. They did it for Sean, and Sean, well, he did it for them as well, returning the favour, laying one on to Dallin Watene-Zelezniak with 30 seconds to go. And what a pass that was. What a moment. What a finish to a career. Don't know if anyone has had a better finish to a career than that moment. Guys, if you have, let me know down in the comments section below. But, man, I'm so happy for Sean Johnson to get a win here. I did tip the Sharks, but I was cheering on the Wars. Let's be honest. I think everyone was cheering on the Wars in that one. Knights getting the job done against the Titans. Titans just not really in it at the moment. We're figuring out a few things towards the end of the year. And the Knights have really started to click a little bit. Their attack is a bit more free-flowing than it was, but it really did shut off in that second half. It's almost as if with 20 minutes to go, they said, we got the win. Let's pack it in here. And they backed their defence. And rightly so. The Titans scored a couple of tries to try and get back in it, but it wasn't really ever going to go their way. For the Roosters, that's another game that just really was very perplexing. They could not get anything going as the best attacking team in the competition, And we've seen this year with some really good attacking teams. I know my team is a very good attacking team in the Cowboys. And when they come up against a good defensive side, it really doesn't translate. Whether they are the best attacking team in the competition or not, if you're defending well, you can stop them. And we've seen that with the Roosters here in this game, that the Raiders really showed us a formula. Yes, there were some injuries from the Roosters, not going to lie. Man, losing Sam Walker is huge for them moving forward. He's been outstanding this year. It's the first time I've really thought, Sam's really owning his role there and has carved out a nice spot for himself moving forward for this Roosters side to lead them for not only into the finals this year, but years to come. And the sad news about him tearing his ACL is horrible. But hopefully they can bounce back and give it a good shot against the Rabbitohs this week. So that's it there, guys. Just 4 out of 8 tips correct in round 26. I would have loved to do a little bit better coming into the back end of the season, but hopefully we can pick it up this week. Now let's just take a look at the tipping comp that we are running with NRLtipping.com this year. And Chris from North Sydney Bears is still in first position by 1 point over Callan the Dark Knight. Then we also have Jeff in third place. Guys, keep putting in your tips each and every week. We go all the way to the grand final, as I have been reminding everyone each and every week. I will update you guys on who is winning and try and get in contact with the top 3 finishers. So let's go all the way to the grand final this year and give it hell. Let's move on to round 27 tips, guys. The first game of round 27 is on Thursday night at Suncorp Stadium, where the Broncos take on the Melbourne Storm. Now, the Storm have dominated this fixture in the past. They've won 15 out of the last 16 games against the Broncos, but had a wild shootout against them earlier this year at Amy Park, winning that one 34-32. For the Broncos, they disappointed on all fronts, not only last week, but just this entire year. It's definitely been one to forget for them, especially on the highs of 2023. They would have been hoping for at least one better. One better would have been the grand final winners this year, but it's definitely not panned out that way. This week, though, I do think that they will be resting Reece Walsh. There's no need to play him, considering they are out of contention for the finals. And on the Melbourne side of things, there's word around that they will be putting all of their first team players back in. Pappenhausen picked up an injury last week with Suafa'alongo moving to fullback. News suggests that it's only just a cork, which is great for Ryan Pappenhausen considering the amount of injuries he's had over the past couple of seasons. I feel like with the Storm bringing in their full-strength squad this week, they should get a win up at Suncorp. They love playing there. The Broncos will also be without Stags this week, which is a big blow considering their outside back depth isn't the best. And I feel like the Storm will get out to a hot start and really just blow them away, unfortunately, for Broncos fans. And as I said, they'll just want to forget this season, move on, and bring on 2025. Let's get on the Storm here, 13 plus. Well, hold on to your hats, fellas. Looks like we got ourselves a spoon bowl. The Tigers take on the Eels out at Campbelltown in what is being dubbed the Spoon Bowl, and I've got to say for these two teams, neither team wants to finish in 17th position. For the Tigers, it will be their 3rd spoon in a row. For Parramatta, they have more spoons than you could poke a stick at. And for both teams, they come into this one on the back of some decent form over the last month or so. The Tigers have won 2 in a row. They're looking for 3 in a row for the first time in a couple of seasons. And for Parramatta, they can avoid being the laughingstock of the season. And for them, that is a big far cry from the 2022 grand final where they were runners-up. As we know, the Tigers beat the Eels earlier in the season, but it was with an Aiden Caesar field goal, and he will not be playing in the game this week. They will also not have Jareem Buller or Adam Dewey. Despite coming back from that knee injury, it has hampered him once again. I feel like for the Eels, if they get out to a hot start, which I think they will in this one, they could let the Tigers back into the game, and that has been the game script for the Eels over the last fortnight. They just love letting teams back into the game, especially with 10 minutes to go or 15 minutes to go. It just seems like they forget how to play football 65 minutes into the game, and especially in a game where they're winning quite comfortably. They just completely shut off all the engines and dive into that free fall position. I feel for the Eels, but I genuinely think they are going to lose this game this week. The Tigers, they're riding high. They have a lot to play for, possibly a lot more to play for than the Eels do. And personally, I feel like the Eels, as far as expectations go, have been one of the worst teams this year. You could probably add the Broncos to that list as well. But the Eels, in my opinion, almost deserve the spoon. And I hate saying that. Got a lot of friends who are Eels fans, and they will hate me saying that as well. But I feel like it's time. Eels fans, you're getting the spoon. Tigers, 1-12. Friday evening, the venue is Accor Stadium, and the matchup is the Rabbitohs taking on the Roosters. Now, the Roosters were absolutely decimated on the injuries front last week. Radley didn't finish the game. Butcher didn't finish the game. Serious knee injuries to Sam Walker and Brandon Smith. And you've got to really wonder what their finals chances are coming into this week. Not only are they taking on a team that really has nothing to lose in the Rabbitohs, but they are also going to have one eye ahead on the finals series and a potential matchup with Penrith out at Penrith. And with a team that is just... And the Rabbitohs, well, they are going to be missing Cam Murray for this game, but they will also be without Jack Whiten, who's been pretty good for them over the last 8 weeks or so since he moved into that 5'8" role, really found a home with Cody Walker. It hasn't really shown on the results front, but I do feel like he has been playing some of his better football. I just feel like this is a weird game, and it's one that the Roosters tend to lose, mostly based on emotion, but Latrell isn't playing in this game, and normally he is the catalyst for all of that emotion as well. And I just feel like the Roosters slipped up last week, and it probably won't happen again. I feel like they can confidently go down to Accor Stadium and still win this game. I do like Sandon Smith if he comes in. If they put Manu to 6, good night, Rabbitohs. I feel like Manu is one of the best sixes in the game when he gets put at 5'8". I just feel like the Roosters are possibly going to have a return to form and have way too much firepower for this struggling Rabbitohs side. Going to go the Roosters, 13+. We turn to Netstrata Jubilee Stadium for our first game on Saturday, where the Dragons will be taking on the Raiders. Now, there have been some feisty matchups between these two teams in the past, and there will be a battle for supremacy there. I can remember Warren Smith laying on the famous, "Do you believe in miracles? Do you believe in Hoodoo's call?" But as far as current form goes, the Raiders have dominated the fixture over the previous 10 games. They've won 7, and they had a very dominant performance against the Roosters last week, especially in the defensive department, which is something that the Dragons definitely didn't do against the 16th placed Eels. They led in 44 points, but they did score 40 themselves. However, 28 of those points came in the final 10 minutes of the game. I just don't know what went on with the Dragons last week. It was one of their win weeks. It was one of the weeks that they should have definitely put in the pocket and said, yep, let's put it in our hands to be in the top 8. And if we lose in the final round of the regular season, then so be it. But they really just blew it, and now they have zero chance. Both of these teams don't. They will be finishing on 30 or 28 points, depending on who the winner will be, and their for and against is not really that competitive compared to some of the other teams like the Knights and the Dolphins. So it's playing for pride at the moment, and I feel like I've got to say the Raiders have just stunned me the last couple of weeks. These two fixtures that they've had against Penrith and then the Roosters really just shows the potential that could have been there for that team this year, but it has just dropped off. And yeah, I'm a bit disappointed in both of these teams, really. I felt like the Dragons were building some nice momentum throughout the season. They had some very good wins, especially that Storm win, but it's really just dropped off lately. And now I don't know where this game is going to go at all. I just feel like the Raiders, based on last week's performance, I have to back them. And the Dragons will be finishing the season with 3 losses in a row when they could have finished in the top 8. Let's go the Raiders here to get a win away from home and finish off the season strong, 1-12. Back to Accor Stadium for the Dogs taking on the Cowboys this week. And for the Dogs, it was a humbling experience, I would assume, against Manly on the weekend. They were thoroughly outclassed in the middle of the field. They did lose Matt Burton during the game, and he will be out for the game against the Cowboys with a grade 1 concussion. So that really opens the door for a Cowboys side that, well, has been good in patches this year. They've beaten the Dogs earlier in the year. They beat the Sharks, they've beaten the Roosters, they've beaten Penrith, and they've beaten Melbourne this year. And they're one of the only teams in the competition to do that. But I just feel like they really aren't playing anywhere near their best football, especially in the defensive department. I was really singling out Jeremiah Nane on the weekend. Like when I was watching the game, he just cannot read defensive plays at all, misses a lot of tackles as well. Yes, he's really good for us on the offensive side of the ball, but I'm just really not liking the defensive efforts that I'm seeing each and every week, and no doubt Todd Payton will be expressing that as well to the players. Coming down to a core stadium, the Cowboys have actually won 3 of their last 5 games, so I do give them a shot in this one, but the Dogs, once again, at home, been really good all year. Did drop that one game last week, but there will be a big crowd out there for this game, and no doubt they will be wanting to sew up that 5th position and just take on whoever wins out of the Dolphins and Knights this week. I feel like for the Cowboys, long way to go against a team who has been pretty consistent this year, and the Cowboys really don't have the kind of dominant forward pack that the Manly Sea Eagles do, so the Dogs will be able to contain them a lot more. It hurts me, guys, but I'm going to go the Dogs 1-12. Saturday night, we're out at Bluebet Stadium where the Panthers will be taking on the Titans. And for the Panthers, it is simple. Win and you will secure second place. And for the Panthers, they will be licking their lips at this matchup. It is a team that they have won 9 out of the last 10 games against. And on the Titans, I feel like they've had this big drop-off towards the end of this season. They haven't won a game since round 22, currently on a 4-game losing streak. And since the losses of AJ Brimson going down, not knowing where to play him, they've kind of struggled in the attacking department of late as well. And it's just not really come together for them at all this year. I thought that Tino has been a huge loss, and on their season, no doubt we'll be doing some season reviews, guys, as well. We'll go into a little bit more depth, but I feel like for the Titans, it's definitely one that got away from them this year. I thought Des Hasler signing was brilliant, but yeah, it just really hasn't folded their way. Really poor start to the season as well. And for Penrith, if they can get a win and get to second position, it's definitely a far cry from where they were a week ago, where they were staring down the barrel of finishing 4th and having to go down to Melbourne first week of the finals. Now they will be looking at having a home final in Penrith. And I definitely feel like they get it done this week. I don't see the Titans winning this game at all. I feel like the Panthers will run riot once again and get a win 13 plus and secure that second position on the ladder. Let's go Penrith. Yay. Sunday's games this round are possibly set to decide quite a lot of things to come. For the first game, it is Manly taking on the Sharks at Four Pines Park. Now, you might be thinking the Sharks going to Four Pines Park don't have a chance, but they've actually won their last 3 games at the venue, and the Manly Sea Eagles will be without Tom Trbojevic this week as he had an AC joint injury. It's tough to see Tom Trbojevic go down. We know how good of a player he is, but luckily the injury wasn't as serious as first thought. For the Sharks, they had to contend with a lot of emotion in last week's game, and I really don't think that they can be disappointed by their efforts, but there are some games this year where they've gone up in quite significant numbers, but they just get a little bit tight, can't really put the nail in the coffin of the team, and then they end up letting the other team back into it. And that's exactly what happened with the Warriors on the weekend. Yes, they had the running of it. Yes, they had a lot of calls go their way, the Warriors, but I just feel like for the Sharks, they couldn't stay in the game mentally. Iro getting sin binned. It was on the back of multiple offences as well. And Manly, they were outstanding last week. You can't really take anything away from them. They absolutely pieced up the best defensive team in the competition, scoring 30-plus points and really putting a statement down for not only themselves, but against some genuine top 8 competition that they are still in it to win it. I really feel like with this game, it's going to be super close. Like Manly at home is always a tough beat, and the Sharks, they get Nico Hines back. He didn't do too much in last week's game, but you got to think that he was maybe resting a little bit just to see if he can get through it and possibly build a little bit of confidence and move forward into the finals. But I'm actually going to back Cronulla this week. They're going to be my Hills Cricket Academy lock of the week. I really like the record that they have at Four Pines Park, and I feel like Manly may slack off a little bit, and they don't have Tom Trbojevic to come in and save them this week. Yes, they have DCE, and he played really well on the weekend, but I just feel like the Sharks will be enamored by that loss last week, and they'll come back stronger in this one. Let's go Sharks, 1-12. This next game is going to be a doozy. Last round, last game of the regular season, 8th versus 9th for a spot in the top 8, and finals beckon for either the Dolphins or the Knights. The Knights will be the home team, but the Dolphins had an emphatic performance last week against the Brisbane Broncos. What does that say about them? They have won 4 out of their last 12 games, and the Knights, well, they've had much better form. They did lose to the Sharks a couple of weeks ago, but they beat the Titans pretty emphatically as well. And there's a lot to toss up in this matchup. Right now, I'm weighing up the inclusions of potentially Jeremy Marshall-King. Does he come back? Max Plath has been doing such a good job, and they had a winning formula last week. Could he disrupt that? Maybe Trey Fuller stays in the side. And the centers matchup, let's speak on it for a moment. You've got Hamiso Tabuai-Fidow taking on Dane Gagai, and then you've got Bradman Best against Herbie Farnworth, who had a phenomenal game on the weekend. Both centers did. Best was unbelievable as well, but it should be really juicy. I feel like I'm hedging towards the Dolphins in this one. I know the Knights will be the home team, and they have been pretty decent at scoring points of late, but I really liked what I saw from the Dolphins on the weekend. If they continue that form, they will be playing finals this year, and in my opinion, they deserve it. They put in the hard yards at the start of the season. I know a lot of people think that you've got to time your run well, and the Dolphins really haven't, but in my opinion, they've done enough this year to get into the top 8, and for the Knights, I just feel like they've been way too inconsistent this year to be able to see them in the top 8. I feel like they will be cannon fodder no matter which team makes the 8 this week, whether it be the Dolphins or the Knights. I don't feel like they're going very far in the finals, but I feel like the Dolphins can make it back in there. Let's go the Dolphins in this one to get a win away from home at McDonald Jones Stadium and put an end to the Knights' finals hopes. Dolphins 1-12. So that is it for tips for the last round of the regular season, guys. Stay tuned next week when we talk about week 1 of the finals. I will be having special guests each and every week of the finals series. Make sure that you like and subscribe to the channel. Comment down below if you think my tips this week are going to get 8 out of 8. Comment your tips as well. I always love seeing everyone's tips each and every week. And I'll catch you on the next one, guys.